Welcome to Easy Email Marketing. I'm your host, Yael Keown, mum, FIFO wife, MBA, coffee lover, survivor superfan, and creator of the email experience. In Easy Email Marketing, you'll benefit from my nearly 20 years experience, where I'll be teaching you all the tips, tricks, and insider info on how to create feel-good, non-spammy experiences for your subscribers. Let's get stuck in. Welcome back to Easy Email Marketing. I'm your host, Yael Keown, and today's episode is especially for those of you in the e-commerce space. And I'm going to be answering one of the biggest questions I get, which is, what's the best software for me? Now, I have done a more general episode about this back in episode 5, but gosh, I think that was a couple of years ago. And while there haven't been any major changes, apart from, a little bit of pricing perhaps, and a feature added here and there, and maybe some cosmetic changes, I thought it was time for an update. And perhaps instead of doing a more general one, I thought about focusing specifically on different business types. So today I'm talking about e-commerce businesses, and in a future episode in a month or two, I'll do one specific for services and digital products. So while there are many commonalities in email marketing and email marketing best practice across both types of businesses, there are some unique aspects too. And I guess that's what I want to be able to cover in these specific episodes. So during this episode, I'll be looking at a few of the most popular options and some key things you need to know about each and how to make the best choice for you. Now, of course, I can't cover every piece of software out there because there are just so many to choose from, and that would just be an impossible task. But I will be talking about the ones that come up most often in my conversations with clients and email experience students. This is also high-level information, as I don't want to be talking here for 2 hours, because definitely we could do a deep dive into each piece of software that this covers for an hour each. For those that I do have in the email experience, there is a full library of tutorials and a whole setup guide on how I recommend you set it up. So it's just not practical for me to talk about all of that stuff inside here. But I'm going to do my best and give you the high level information so that you can take this as your start and then go ahead and do more in-depth research. However, one note I do want to mention is if Klaviyo is the one that you think, I want to know more about, I do have an upcoming free masterclass where I'm going to do an introduction to Klaviyo. I'm going to be hosting that live on April 27th. There will also be a replay available, not even limited time. So even if you're coming to this way down the track, make sure to check that out and register. So if Klaviyo is one that you're interested in exploring, I do highly encourage you to sign up to it. So you can do that at yaelkeown.com/Klaviyo. And I look forward to talking about that then. Okay, almost ready to get stuck in, but one more quick disclaimer is that while I'm doing my best to accurately represent the features and the plans and the software at the time of this recording in early April 2023, of course, email marketing software providers can change these features and their pricing and what they offer at any time. So please make sure to still do your due diligence in reviewing their pricing and planning options, their feature selection when making your final decision. Okay, let's get stuck in to your options. And I've pretty much divided this into 4 different categories first. The category 1 is the native email marketing options. So this is like Shopify email. So this is options that are hosted within your store. The second option is second category I would classify as entry level. These would be the generic email marketing software providers that do email marketing, but they also support e-commerce businesses. They have some e-commerce functionality. Category 3 will be more like multi-purpose platforms, and I'll talk about a bit more about that when we get to there. And the final category is, of course, a dedicated e-commerce email marketing software. So they are both not only built for email marketing, but also specifically with e-commerce in mind. So let's go through each of those. And obviously, they all have their pros and cons. So let's start with category 1 and your native email marketing options. So I'll be honest, I don't have a ton of experience with these ones because it's not my specialty. It's not my niche. I'm focused more on the email marketing side of things and their software. But it is important to mention these because they are a legitimate option and could be a good one if you are just starting out in your e-commerce business. These have come a long way in the last few years. A couple of years ago, if you would have asked me, should I use Shopify email? I would have been like, nah, it's just not going to do what you want to do. But it has come a long way. So it could be worth exploring early in those days. So yeah, the first one I want to cover is Shopify email. So this is its own email marketing add-on option. Which includes all you need for, sending out your newsletter. So you can send out your newsletter campaigns with this, as well as, some automations like your abandoned cart, your post-purchase thank you, your win-back automations, like if someone hasn't purchased for a while. So this is nowhere near as advanced as dedicated email marketing providers. And while it does have some of these automation capabilities and some basic segmenting, it is nowhere near as good as the software that's designed to do it. Also, one area that it is lacking is subscription forms. So you can't just add more general sign-up forms throughout your site without using a different third-party plugin. It doesn't mean you can't just find something to do that. But if you're thinking about list building or even like having a thing that's like get your 10% off code that isn't just something that's in your footer, then you would need to look at adding something else into the mix. But this software does include the footer and it does also that checkbox at checkout. So building your subscriber list could be difficult if you want to do multiple things, but you can add plugins to achieve this. However, of course, the positive is it's all in one. It's built inside your Shopify. You don't need to go outside of it to use a different platform, and you don't need to pay extra for it. At least up to 10,000 emails. So their pricing works on the total number of emails sent, so not on the number of subscribers. But you get up to 10,000 emails for free if you're on a paid Shopify plan. And then after that, each additional, like about 1,000 emails, they price it on the individual email, but to round it up, it's about US like $1 for 1,000 additional emails. So if you're at that point, it should be paying for itself anyway. So my bottom line thoughts on something like Shopify email is that it's a great option to get started with, especially while establishing yourself. But as you grow, it might be worth looking at something more dedicated. Also, if list building is important to your strategy, which to be honest, it should be, then it may be worth looking at something more dedicated immediately. For those of you using WooCommerce, there are a couple of plugins you could use for doing newsletter type things. But really, if that's the case, I would definitely still be looking at a third-party provider and integrating them into your WooCommerce store. They do have its own plugin called AutomateWoo, but that is for e-commerce automations only. So this could do the basic email automations like abandoned cart, post-purchase email, and customer winbacks. But it isn't an email list builder and it doesn't send newsletter style campaigns, and it costs you $99 a year US to use. So if you don't want to do newsletters and you only want to do a few extra transactional ones, you could use this. But personally, I would just be looking at one of these next options because they integrate with WooCommerce easily anyway. So that's just my 2 cents on the WooCommerce options. Okay. So let's go into category 2. And these are what I would consider entry level. So this is software that is dedicated to email marketing, but they are not necessarily e-commerce specific. They give you the basic features you need at a lower price point, but don't necessarily include some of the fancier, more like just tailored e-commerce things that you might want. So one way to think about it is the above options I gave you in category 1 were focused. They were the store provider, so they're focused on the e-commerce angle. But these are focused from the email marketing angle and are ones that, appeal to a lot of people and try to achieve a lot of things. So the most popular option here is, of course, and the one you've most heard of is MailChimp. Most popular just because it is the most heard of. I don't necessarily believe it is the best in terms of its capabilities. One thing I will note is that while MailChimp does have a free plan, the free plan just would not be able to achieve what you need for e-commerce marketing. You would definitely need to get on the paid plan. And you could do that though at a relatively low cost of about AU $19.50 a month for 500 contacts. That's the Essentials plan. But for full features, I would suggest the standard, which is just above $30 Australian a month for up to 500 contacts. Of course, it differs how many contacts you've got. You'll need to go to their website to, use their calculator. So for this, on the standard plan, you will get all the essential e-commerce automations you need and be able to build your email list, sending out your regular campaigns, and all integrate with your WooCommerce store, no problem. For Shopify, though, you will need a third-party plugin to connect the two because there is no longer a direct integration, and that has been the case for some time. So that will give you all of that. However, my challenge with MailChimp, and I talk about this a lot more in the MailChimp episode 26, so you might want to check that out, is that if you have multiple ways for people to sign up or you've got multiple groups of subscribers, it is difficult to manage due to the way their lists, aka audiences, are managed. You can't just move people across different audiences very easily. You'll need to have one audience and you might need to play with things like source IDs, etc., to get people to get sent different emails. So it can get quite complex. However, if you're literally just focusing more on building your customer list, having your e-commerce automations and just sending a general kind of newsletter to everyone, and maybe you have like a 10% off coupon situation, MailChimp will definitely be able to achieve that for you. So that is one option. The other what I would consider entry-level option is MailerLite. And personally, if I were looking at entry-level software, I would prefer to go with something like this, which gives you all the same functionality, but for free for up to 1,000 subscribers. Plus, you have the added features of groups, meaning you can easily manage and send emails to different groups of subscribers based on actions they've taken, where they've signed up from, and their automations. So as I mentioned, free for up to 1,000 subscribers. If you've got a more list count than that, check out their website. But if you want to know more about MailerLite, definitely check out episode 29, where I go into more detail about that. So that's kind of the two options. The first two categories, the one coming from the e-commerce side and the one coming from the entry-level, just only email marketing side. The third category I would consider kind of multi-purpose, and the one I'm going to talk about here mostly is ActiveCampaign. So this is more advanced. I would not consider this entry-level email marketing, but I would also not consider it e-commerce email marketing. However, it can be useful if you have a very hybrid business. So maybe you have an e-commerce arm or an e-commerce store as part of a bigger business where you have, you're selling online programs, or you run services and you have a few different things going on, but you still want everything in one place. ActiveCampaign will make that possible for you. It does definitely have e-commerce capabilities that integrate with WooCommerce, Shopify, and BigCommerce, but you need to be on the Marketing Plus plan. So ActiveCampaign does have a light plan, but it will not do e-commerce things on it apart from building your list and connecting to your store, about treating everyone the same. It does have basic e-commerce recipes, but I would say it's just not quite as pretty and the deep data is not quite as good as the others. However, as I mentioned, it's a good option if it's kind of just part of your business. It's not the main focus of your business. Pricing, though, it does start pricier at $105 a month for up to 1,000 contacts. And so this could be the barrier for many of you. As I mentioned, it's because the light plan doesn't cover the e-commerce support integrations. And that price also does not include SMS. So if you did want SMS, so unlike the others, this one does start supporting SMS. But it would be, looking at $31.50 Australian a month for 1,000 credits, but it takes 7 credits for a single text message. So meaning that's like 142 text messages. So it doesn't work out to a lot of text messages. So, you'd be saving those SMSs for something super, super important. Okay. On to category 4. And of course, probably the one that, I definitely would hint at if you are super serious about your email marketing. And that is email marketing software that is dedicated, that has been built from the ground up for e-commerce businesses. So unlike the above, where it's either the e-commerce store or email marketing software with some added e-commerce features, These combine the best of both worlds. And the two I look at here are Klaviyo and Omnisend. So these not only have all the automations and recipes you need and a lot, integrate to your store beautifully and pull through your products and your product categories and make it look really, really good. And they also have things like features like conditional content blocks, personalized product recommendations, and even with Klaviyo, you can have custom coupon codes that expire within like 7 days from that unique person, and it creates that code in Shopify. And they also have SMS as well, which I mentioned some of the other ones do not. So the difference here. So I'll start with pricing and then I'll talk about a couple of differences between the two. So for Omnisend, you can start out on a free plan for 250 contacts and 500 emails a month, the same as Klaviyo. So both of them, you have an entry-level plan that you can try. So if you wanted to give both a go, you could. However, for both, I imagine you would outgrow them quickly. So for Omnisend, for 1,000 contacts, you're looking at about US $20 a month for 1,000 contacts and 12,000 emails. For Klaviyo, for the same amount of contacts, you're looking at about $30 for 1,000 and contacts and 10,000 cents. So not quite as many cents. So it comes up slightly more expensive. For SMS, I'm still borderline, SMS is still quite expensive in Australia. For in the US, it's a different story. But in Australia, from Omnisend, for Omnisend, you'd be looking at about US $45 for 1,000 SMSs to Australian customers, where you'd be looking at about an extra $35 a month for the same in Australia, but then you might need to add extra credits as well. So for Klaviyo, you'd be looking at, that's slightly cheaper. So, they are very comparable. Omnisend does come out slightly cheaper, but beyond that, the difference between the two is kind of, difficult to explain in terms like if you looked at their feature list, you kind of look at them and go, yep, they're kind of the same. But where I would say they differ is Klaviyo is slightly more advanced and more feature rich. Like you can go deeper with things like segmenting in terms of the email design, in terms of the automations and just the splits of categories. And Omnisend isn't quite as comprehensive in those ways, but that can mean it is simpler to use. So that's the trade-off. Do I want a bit more advanced features, a bit more sexy stuff and pay that little bit extra with Klaviyo? Or do I just want to start with basic but still having e-commerce, essentials and go with Omnisend? Both honestly are fantastic options. And, if I, of course, being the email marketing person, would say, what would I recommend as email marketing software? It would be one of the two. However, of course, I do recognize that, sometimes we don't have the money to invest in these platforms, or we're just getting started and we just want to get a few basics set up. In that case, going with your store or going with something entry level like MailerLite or MailChimp could be a really legitimate option, because of course my preference is having something rather than nothing at all. So, how do you make the choice? Take what I've said here and just go with something, or choose two and have a deeper look at them by signing up for their free plan or their trial and giving it a go. Or you could just watch some YouTube videos or support videos to see what you like. But the most important thing is I want you to decide. I want you to set a deadline in your mind. Okay, I'm going to make a decision by this, because having some email marketing setup is better than none, and you can always change it later. The last thing I want you to do is to procrastinate on this decision and lose 3 months of list building and email marketing time just because you're trying to make the best, again, in quotation marks, decision for you. There is no perfect answer. The best software is the one you are actually going to use. That's the bottom line. Personally, of course, I am a huge advocate of Klaviyo, mostly because I'm really familiar with it. I love it. I work with a lot of clients on this software. And because I do love it so much, that's why I'm putting together the free Introduction to Klaviyo Masterclass, which I'm hosting on April 27th. Just because I'm hosting that doesn't mean I'm anti any other software. It's just because that's my jam and that's what I really specialize in, and I really want to become the go-to person for a couple of pieces of software, and Klaviyo is one of those. So if that one in particular is something you're interested in exploring, make sure to register for that free training. You can do that at yaelkeone.com/Klaviyo. As I mentioned, It'll be live, and if you're on with me live, we'll have a big opportunity for like coaching and answering specific questions tailored to your business. However, if you are listening to this past that date and you're still interested in it, absolutely register, but you'll probably just get like the first half presentation, not, all the coaching extra questions. But you'll definitely get a ton of value out of that, because I will be basically exploring, all the options and giving you the grand tour and my thoughts about how to set it up most effectively, because there are a couple of tricks that take it from being, stock standard to something that you can really tailor to your business and what you want to achieve. So thank you for joining me today. I really hope you enjoyed this episode and have some really good takeaways and are now feeling good about your email marketing software decisions. I would love to hear from you about what you've enjoyed from this episode, or if you do have any questions, follow-up questions about, is this right for me? Please do reach out. I don't mind having a chat in the old DMs over on Instagram. Make sure to reach out over at Yale Keown, all one word, and I will see you in the next episode. Thank you for listening to Easy Email Marketing. It's an absolute honor that you chose to listen. If you love this episode, then it would mean the world to me if you could leave a review so that others can find this podcast and make their email marketing easy too. Finally, make sure to subscribe so that you don't miss a thing. Until next time, have an awesome day and make sure to keep showing up and serving in those inboxes.